Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, November the 22nd, 2020. It is currently 7:41 a.m. Central Time, and I'm here at Victory Baptist Church this Sunday morning for a day of live broadcasting. I'll be here this morning till around noon. Then I'll go home, get something to eat, take a little break, come back, try to be here by 3 in the afternoon, and then be here for a couple of more hours. So a number of hours of live broadcasting. Hopefully, as I say this every week, I say this pretty much every time I'm on the air, trying to produce things, trying to do live broadcasts that will be beneficial to you, that will be helpful to you, that will be challenging to you, and that will hopefully benefit you in your spiritual life, that will help you grow as a Christian. And one of the things that I continue to talk about is this idea that no matter what we face, individual situations in our own lives, everyday things that happen to us, big global events, no matter what it is, everything that we are presented with, everything we are confronted with, everything that happens to us and around us, we are faced with kind of a choice. Every situation really serves as a trial and a temptation. What do I mean by that? Every time something happens, every time we're confronted with something, we will either respond in a way that situation will serve as something that reveals the genuineness of our faith, or it will serve as kind of a trial to purge our faith, to purify our faith, or it will serve as a temptation that can result in us falling into sin and us responding to it in an ungodly way. So no matter what it is, no matter what happens, positive, negative, good, tragic, it doesn't matter what the situation is. It doesn't matter what the event is. When we're confronted with it, it's either going to reveal the genuineness of our faith, because we're going to respond in a very biblical way, godly way, demonstrating our Christianity, or it's going to be very much a trial that's going to purify our faith, purge some things out, and be very beneficial, or it's going to serve as a source of temptation because we're going to respond to it in an ungodly way, and then we're going to fall into sin. Now, that can still be beneficial. It can still purify, but it can initially cause us to fall into sin because we do not respond correctly. And we've been talking about some major events that Christians have had to face. We Christians, the church, has had to deal with the COVID-19 situation. Now, the way we're responding, is it revealing the genuineness of our faith? Is hopefully it's serving as a trial to try to purify and purge us, but at the same time, it has served as a source of temptation, because I believe a lot of the response has not been very biblical, has been very ungodly, has been very selfish, and has not taken into account other people, loving neighbor, submission to government, all the other things that we're supposed to strive for as Christians. So we've had the COVID-19 situation. We've had the election. All of these situations, and I could go on and on and on and on. You get the idea. These things come and then boom. What do they reveal? Are they purifying us? And are we falling into sin as a result of these situations? So we have all of these things that we could consider. But this morning, we're going to come back to something that still a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are debating. And once again, I think it's demonstrating a lot of problems within Christianity, that it's becoming a source of temptation. And that is this entire subject in regards to the election and voter fraud. Everyone seems to have an opinion. Everyone seems to have a theory about what happened in the election. Was the election stolen by Donald Trump? Is voter fraud widespread? Is there just overwhelming proof, but nobody's listening to the proof? And Christians are right there with everyone else, throwing out our ideas, throwing out our theories. And I just want to remind you that as a Christian, one of the most important concepts is the idea of truth. We as Christians, we believe that truth exists. We believe in absolute truth. We believe that as Christians, we're to put away lying and we are to speak the truth to one another. That is what we're called to do as Christians, and even our spiritual armor. I want to remind you of this. This is something that maybe you haven't thought about, but in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 14, telling us that we need to put on our spiritual armor, we are told, Ephesians 6:14, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth. One of the items of our spiritual armor, one of the things that we are to put on when we're putting on our spiritual armor is truth. Truth is what matters to us as Christians, not your perception of truth, not your version of truth, but the truth. We don't believe that you can have your version of truth and I can have my version of truth. We believe there is truth and there is falsehood. There is truth and there is error. And we as Christians must be pursuing truth, speaking truth, defending truth, putting away deceit, putting away lying, exposing deceit, and exposing lying. That's what we're called to do as Christians. But right now, as a Christian, we are facing a very weird situation. Because when it comes to the whole voter fraud thing, there's basically two realities that are being presented. Reality number one, voter fraud, it was absolutely everywhere. It was overwhelming, and the proof is everywhere. All right, the voter fraud was overwhelming. The voter fraud was everywhere, but the proof is everywhere. The proof is undeniable. The proof cannot be denied. The proof cannot be rejected, and that they will. Coming soon, they're going to have their day in court, and they're going to prove to the world that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. The current results are going to be overturned. The election's going to be given to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will serve his second term. That's one narrative. Hey, the voter fraud, it's everywhere. It's provable. It cannot be denied. Donald Trump is going to win. The Supreme Court will ultimately decide for us, and the proof is there if you'll just look at it. On the other side, it's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? There is no proof. Every time you say there's proof, it turns out not to be true. Every time you claim there's all this evidence, there is no evidence. That's the other reality. Two very different realities. And as a Christian, you're stuck there in between because, listen, you want to pursue truth. But both realities that are being presented cannot be true. So what are you going to do? Now, you can go with the reality that you like in other words, if you're a Trump supporter, you like the reality that the election was stolen and that they have all the evidence and it's going to be overturned. If you like Trump, that's the reality that you may prefer. But guess what? You can't just choose the reality you want. You've got to try to find the truth. If you hate Donald Trump, and you despise him, then the reality you're going to choose, the reality that will be your preference, will be the reality that there is no proof, there is no evidence. Joe Biden won the election. Let's move on. But we don't choose reality based off personal preference. We don't choose truth based off what we like. We don't choose truth based off what we want. That's not the way Christianity is supposed to work. That's not how Christians are supposed to operate. We're supposed to have as our spiritual armor truth. We're supposed to pursue truth, speak truth. So I just want to demonstrate exactly how different these realities are, right? Let's start first with an interview that aired on Newsmax on November the 21st. So it aired last night on Newsmax. Now, right, I'm going to turn to Newsmax because according to some conservatives and a lot of the Christian media, you can't trust Fox News anymore. They've gone, quote unquote, to the dark side. They're now liberal hacks. You can't trust them. So we should reject Fox News because now that can't be trusted. I've heard this on Christian radio now a number of times. So Newsmax is where you're supposed to go. So let's turn to Newsmax. And they're interviewing, what's her name? Sidney Powell, I believe is her name. Make sure I've got it here. I believe it's Sidney Powell. The attorney Sidney Powell. She's the attorney that you've probably seen on the news over and over and over, the attorney for the Trump administration. And she keeps telling everyone there's overwhelming evidence of voter fraud, that we're going to overturn the election. Well, she was on Newsmax last night, and let's listen to, well, some of the things that she is continuing to say. Listen to this carefully. Here we go.
Now have Sidney Powell on the phone. We got the little gremlins out of the system there, whatever the problem was. Sidney, if you can hear us, great to talk with you tonight.
Yes.
How you doing? And it's good to talk to you as always. I want to start off with just the ruling. The biggest news out tonight is this Pennsylvania ruling from this federal district court judge. What do you make of that?
Yes. Well, each of the district court judges has their own particular perspective on things. And I think that judge was appointed by President Obama. We really don't expect to win a lot of the district court cases, but ultimately the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court will have to get it right. We're very clear on the law and the facts on multiple issues, and we haven't even begun to present the big fraud case yet that I am still working on. And it's going to be a blockbuster.
I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, I mean, you guys had the news conference this week. There was a lot of compelling stuff in there. It sounded like you guys were making progress going down a road of investigation. But as I think anybody understands, when you're trying to lay out a case, it takes time to find out what you have. You had a bit of a rub with Tucker Carlson this week, who basically said you didn't have any evidence when they asked you to come on. What is the truth of the matter there? Because that made a lot of news.
Oh, yes. Well, he sent me some very abrasive and disrespectful emails or text messages, and I responded politely, offering him a different person as a witness who could explain it. I simply didn't have time to do it then, and I sent him a copy of one of the compelling affidavits that we have in the case. And apparently that wasn't sufficient for him. He was having a little bit of a tantrum. But I didn't see or hear what he said, and I haven't had time to listen to what he said after that. I'm just proceeding on my course of getting the case ready to prove in a court, which is where we prove cases of law, not in the media.
What is your timeline as you look at this? What's the timeline you think before you can put out some of this evidence that can really, if you want to shut the media up, or they say that you guys have nothing, when will you have some of this stuff that's this hardcore evidence in paper and writing?
Well, frankly, the affidavits we've already introduced are hardcore evidence. They're firsthand testimony of witnesses who saw how and why the system was created and how it worked to accomplish the objective for Hugo Chavez. They're people who saw ballots being destroyed. We've got evidence from people who saw fake ballots being created. We've got all kinds of different evidence, and then we've got the statistical and mathematical evidence that's absolutely irrefutable. I mean, a coin doesn't land on the same side when you flip it 186,000 times. You can't just inject 86,000 Biden votes and expect anybody to believe those are real, and they're not.
When we see,
no matter how you analyze the statistics, whether it's a predictive model or the actual data as it comes in, it doesn't hold water. And we've got other testimonial evidence that appears to be coming in now to indicate the Democrats literally added 35,000 votes to every Democratic candidate to begin with.
35 in any particular state, or you say 35,000 where?
We've got it definitely all over one state, and I would be willing to bet it happened everywhere.
And when you lay all this out, and you're going to do this in court, do you have what you think is irrefutable evidence that will make up the minds of millions of American people?
Well, the burden of proof in court is only a preponderance of the evidence. Mm-hmm. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the criminal standard. But frankly, with everything we've got, these should be criminal prosecutions at a significant level for fraud and conspiracy to defraud. Provable beyond a reasonable doubt. There are hundreds of thousands of people in our criminal system right now in prison who were convicted on far less evidence of guilt than we have here.
Sidney Powell, I want you to react to something that this Republican senator from Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey, just said in reaction to the district court judge's decision. The district court judge is someone who's very close to Pat Toomey. Senator Toomey says that President Trump has now, quote, exhausted all plausible legal options to challenge the result of the presidential race in Pennsylvania. Is that true?
No, that's not true at all.
Can you explain why the senator's wrong?
Begun to fight.
Can you explain why is the senator wrong?
Well, he's wrong because Pennsylvania was one of the hotbeds of many varieties of fraud and criminal acts that the Department of Justice, frankly, should be in there prosecuting. And we're going to dump a whole lot of them into evidence in our fraud case that we're going to file in Pennsylvania.
Why do you think the Justice Department isn't being more aggressive in following up on what you see?
I think the Justice Department has known about this issue for a long time and turned a blind eye to it.
Why, though?
I wonder how much the CIA actually had a role in starting this kind of program to begin with, use on other countries.
Why would Donald Trump's Justice Department not be interested in this?
Well, I wish Donald Trump had as much control over the Justice Department as people think he does. It's taken on a life of its own. I don't think even Bill Barr has the control over the Justice Department that he would like to have, because there are so many lawyers in so many different places doing whatever it is they want to do and ignoring the standards and practices that historically created the Justice Department to seek justice and not convictions. I mean, I wrote a book about that back in 2014.
Let me ask just...
we've been on this increasingly bad path for decades now, and it's done nothing but get worse because nobody's told the truth and stood up for the truth. But Americans are now. They're livid about this, and they can see it. Everybody saw it election night. They saw votes being subtracted from President Trump and appearing on the Biden side of the scale. And that's exactly what this Dominion system was designed to do. And we have eyewitness testimony to its entire creation for that very purpose.
There have been warnings about this system. We were talking about it earlier, Sidney. I mean, you had Senators Warren and Klobuchar that made a big stink about the 2018 midterms, saying that they don't trust Dominion, that they saw evidence that votes could be switched using these systems. These are Democrats who ran for president. What I don't understand is how does this get ignored? I mean, this is a nationwide, this is a democracy shocking scandal, if it is true.
It is.
And it's so big I can't even wrap my head around it. I just wonder, how does this happen?
Well, that's exactly how it happens, because it's so big, nobody wants to wrap their head around it. Nobody wants to untie all the little knots that go into it. Yeah. But we have to if we're going to be a constitutional republic. This cannot go on. Our votes must be counted fair and true. Every legal vote is entitled to be counted, and every illegal vote nullifies the vote of an American citizen and our public will of we the people. It's absolutely counter to everything this country was founded on. So we have got to get this fixed now. I can't unsee it. I'll tell you that. I certainly cannot unsee what I have seen. And I'm going to make sure everybody else knows everything I've seen too, because we've got to hold our government institutions accountable and do better than this by each other. And it does cut across both political parties. It cuts across generations now, or at least multiple decades of this kind of corruption. It's got increasingly more sophisticated.
Has anybody given you...
just smudge the edge of a ballot and stick it through the machine, and the ballot would be rejected. But now they can literally drag and drop hundreds of thousands of votes wherever they want them.
I mean,
everybody knew when they bought the system, and that was one of the features of the system. We've caught people lying now and saying that things that happened that ran people out of voting areas, and we've got tons of evidence. It's so much, it's hard to pull it all together.
How big of a, if this happened, how big of a conspiracy, how many people would have had to have been in on something like this?
Oh, gosh, probably thousands, including the people running the machines at each of the polling centers. We know, for example, that one of the higher-ups of Dominion went to Detroit the night of the election to handle things himself. And we also have evidence that there were any number of VPN lines open to the Internet for foreign actors to be meddling in it.
Has anybody given you an explanation that as to why they had to turn the machines off? You talk about how the machines got turned off, and then there was a vote dump.
Our witness from Venezuela, who saw it all created and how it worked, said that he knew as soon as the machines were turned off in those key states, it was because we, the people, in voting for Trump in a landslide election, had essentially broken the algorithm that had been pre-programmed into the machine. So they had to stop counting in those states and areas and backfill the vote with fraudulent mail-in ballots or whatever means they used to do it, whether they just injected numbers or trashed votes for Trump otherwise and changed the numbers. I don't know exactly how they did it right now in each spot, but that's essentially the way it worked.
Let me ask you about the state of Georgia. Obviously, yesterday, the governor there, he certified the election for Joe Biden. It's about 12,000 votes. And what you see, will Georgia switch?
Yeah, that's a total farce. Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State's family about that time. And another benefit Dominion was created to award is what I would call election insurance. That's why Hugo Chavez had it created in the first place. But I also wonder where he got the technology, where it actually came from, because I think it's hammer and scorecard from the CIA.
Just to clarify, you're saying that Governor Kemp, who's been a longtime ally of the president, is directly involved because of financial benefit in the conspiracy to defeat the president in Georgia?
We have certainly been told that there is evidence of that, and it would warrant an investigation if anybody were actually going to do an honest investigation.
What more could you tell us about that alleged conspiracy? The governor's involvement?
I can't give you any more details on that now, but it would certainly warrant an investigation. If it had been reported to me as a law enforcement officer, I would be investigating it steadfastly.
I know you say you want to do your arguing in court. You are an attorney. You're not a press secretary, but you all did have a press conference last week. Jordan Sekulow said that there's going to be a filing soon in Georgia that would be explosive. Can you tell us anything? Can you make some news with us here tonight? Tell us anything new that you're going to present in that filing in Georgia.
Well, I can't say that yet, but hopefully this week we will get it ready to file.
Sydney,
it will be biblical.
Biblical. What is the state where was it the worst? From what you see and what you're alleging, what state was switched the most?
Oh, that's really hard to say. Georgia is extremely bad. We've got ballots being shredded, ballots being thrown out in trash bags, lying by people working in the center. The votes being switched, the algorithms being run, you name the manner of fraud, and it occurred in Georgia.
These are in the Atlanta area counties, those counties, Fulton, DeKalb.
Yeah, I think the algorithm ran most probably across the country. Can I say that for sure yet? No, I can't say that for sure yet, but it looks that way. And it looks like 35,000 votes were added to every Democratic candidate.
You also talked about this ability of the system, and I thought this was so interesting when you said it, that it can take a vote and it can make a vote for Biden worth more than a vote for Trump. Do you think that happened, or is that another part of the system that maybe wasn't used?
No, I think that definitely happened. I think that was the first step with the system, to weight the votes so that a Biden vote is worth 1.23, say, and a Trump vote is worth the rest of that. And so the Trump vote is about 3/4, and the Biden vote is 1 1/4. And that way, you can see the reports and the records of fractional numbers for the votes.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
It is. I mean, everything you're alleging, frankly, is nuts. Which is why I think you're getting so much scrutiny and so much criticism. But if it's true, and we don't know, and that's just a simple thing, is that we don't know yet if it's true because we can't see what you've seen. I want to ask you about Michigan. Michigan's a bigger margin than the rest of them. It's like maybe 150,000. What are you seeing in Michigan?
We're seeing essentially the same things in Michigan, except larger number of ballots being stuffed in. It's the old-fashioned stuffing the ballot box. They're just doing it by computer instead of by paper. That's really all it is. They're dragging and dropping files of votes from one person to another instead of just stuffing paper ballots in the ballot box.
Can you specifically?
And, corruption in elections has been going on forever. I remember LBJ saying, send some guys down to the cemetery because those people, if they were alive, would have voted for me. And they take the name and the birthday, and that's what they did.
So it's Saturday night. Can you preview for us as specifically as you can what's going to happen this coming week, starting Monday morning? Tell us where you're going to file, what you expect to happen by Friday.
Well, I don't personally, I don't expect to file anything by Monday. I'm hoping we can get it ready by Wednesday. If not, it should be ready by Friday. But it's a massive project to pull this fraud claim together with the evidence that I want to put in.
So are you saying you're going to file?
And remember, this isn't a summary judgment motion where we actually have to produce any evidence now. Your typical lawsuit, you just file a statement of what the charges are without any affidavits or anything.
But are you saying you're going to file the same?
The way the media is going about this is absolutely ridiculous and unreasonable to expect us to put evidence in right now. Although we know election issues are on an expedited schedule. But I could wait a month to file the fraud case, and everybody would have to undo their certifications because it's so bad.
But are you saying you're going to file the same case in multiple jurisdictions or in one jurisdiction?
Each one's a little bit different depending on what happened in the state, the different manner and means and the evidentiary aspects that support each one. We've got different affidavits from different witnesses in each of the states. So there are going to be some differences between them, but there are going to be claims that are identical. Some of the legal claims are going to be identical. For example, in a number of states, there were modifications to the machine after the statutory cutoff date that should invalidate every vote cast on the machine. I mean, there's no way Georgia can proceed to have an election using those machines for the runoff candidates. Yeah. That's absolutely absurd.
As we wrap this up, Sidney, I think everybody at home right now wants to see this. They want to see what you say you've seen. Is that going to be possible at any point? Are we going to be able to see some of these problems and some of these issues, the way these systems work and the way this Dominion works?
Yes, and there's actually evidence online now. I mean, we need to try to get our website up to date with the complaints that have already been filed. But exhibits were attached, for example, to Lynn Wood's complaint in Georgia that are remarkable and stunning, including the affidavit of the young man from Venezuela who saw Hugo Chavez create how they did the software, hire people to do it and get it done, and then how it worked to make sure he won every election thereafter. That's crazy. What it's designed to do. Their own handbook tells you that these things are features of their system. Right. Are we supposed to think they didn't use the features? Heck no, they used them. And they used them against their own candidates. The Democrats used them against Bernie Sanders in 2016. And somebody even told him what had been done to him when Hillary Clinton won that primary, and he didn't. And instead of standing up for the American people and the right to vote, he sold out.
You're saying Dominion, the Smartmatic Dominion system was used in 2016 when Hillary beat Bernie in the primary?
Yes.
Wow. I don't think we had heard that yet. That's an incredible development, right?
Well, if it was used to defeat Bernie, why didn't they use it in 2016 to defeat Trump? I mean, these claims here are just insane. One claim after another claim after another claim. Thousands of people are involved in this conspiracy. The Justice Department, Trump has no control over his own Justice Department, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Everyone's involved in this conspiracy. They have overwhelming evidence. They're going to overturn the election. It's going to be biblical, and that's all these claims. And if you listen to this, you think, oh, wow, I can't believe what is going on. Let's just finish this up. It's got like 2 minutes left.
Right there, and you say he knows that. Bernie Sanders knows that.
Yes, the person who sent me the data told me that they informed Bernie Sanders of all their findings, and he didn't do anything except get enough money to buy another fabulous house.
Wow.
I'm telling you, it's been used for both parties. One of the big problems is that we don't know who was elected by buying their election through Dominion. I'm sure it crosses party lines. That's not an accusation against every politician. It's certainly not meant to be, but it means we don't know which ones got elected that way and how much they knew about how it was being used for or against them, certainly not against them. But I'm reasonably certain at this point that John James was ripped out of his seat, and he was entitled to have won that election by the real vote. And the same, I think, is true for Doug Collins in Georgia. And there's no telling how many congressional candidates should have won that lost by the addition of 35,000 votes per Democrat or the algorithm that they were running against whoever they wanted to target. I mean, you can do it candidate by candidate.
That is something else. I mean, it's mind blowing. Sydney, what you're alleging, I can't even imagine. And I hope that you will join us again to talk about what you continue to find as you continue to investigate.
I will do that, and I will try and get more stuff up online this week. We've got some website
or just email
issues,
it to
and
us.
of course, people are trying to hack us and everything else. But Democratic Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney wrote the Treasury Secretary about this very issue in 2003, I think it was.
17
so
years
people
ago.
have been complaining about it, and the government's done absolutely nothing except whatever it wants to do. So who is really pulling the strings here and choosing the American officials pursuant to this system? Because it's not the people of the United States of America, and that's supposed to be who it is.
It's just something else. And like you said, prominent Democrat politicians have complained about the usage of this system in this country. Sydney Powell, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the phone. I know how busy you are, and we appreciate the time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay.
Now, what's crazy is supposedly this is, 16 years ago, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, everyone's known about it and the government's done nothing. Well, Trump's been president for how many years? Why didn't he do something about it? Why didn't he speak up? Why didn't he do something? Supposedly it was used against Bernie Sanders, but for some reason they couldn't use the system against Trump when he was going against Hillary. And it was used to switch the vote to Biden from Trump. But there's plenty of other congressional, other Senate, other races that obviously they didn't use it because Democrats lost. So why didn't they use it there? It's just all these claims. Sometimes there's not even a thread of consistency in the claims. But that's the reality that's being put forth on Newsmax now. She didn't have time to go on Tucker Carlson. Obviously, she had time to do a 20-minute interview on Newsmax. So, again, I don't have time to go on Tucker Carlson, but I have time to go on Newsmax. Like, see, even her credibility, you're like, okay, well, why? I mean, if that was Friday night, I think I said last night, Friday night. If that was Friday night when they did that interview, Tucker Carlson's on the air on Friday night. Why didn't she go ahead and go on to Fox News? Was she afraid Tucker Carlson was going to ask too many tough questions? And the Newsmax people were just going to go, wow, if what you're claiming is true, wow, never heard that. Wow, if what you're claiming is true, wow. Like, don't really ask any tough questions and just say, well, at some point we hope we see all this evidence. At some point we hope. You just go ahead and make all your claims, and hopefully someday we'll get to see the evidence. I mean, so far we haven't seen it, but, all right, thank you for coming on Newsmax. Like, no tough questions, no challenges, nothing at all. So she went on to a friendly platform to put forth all of her accusations that she continues to cite of all of this supposed voter fraud. Now, again, if you are a Christian, you say, okay, that's her claim. Now, we need to hear all sides and see if we can find the truth. Give you another example. When did I receive this? I received this November the 21st at 9:08 p.m. So I received this last night. This comes to us from Alex Jones of InfoWars. And here's the subject line of this email. This was sent out by Alex Jones. Supreme Court set to announce President Trump the winner. Now, according to that, the Supreme Court is set to announce President Trump the winner. Now, that's the claim. So these claims are going everywhere. And Christians are grabbing onto these claims. They're sharing them on social media. They're believing that. And that's the narrative they are believing. But that's not the only narrative being put forth. Let's listen to our news report from just this morning, just a few hours ago. Listen to this. Here we go.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Hulu, presenting the new original series No Man's Land. No Man's Land follows the battle between fighting for what you believe in or supporting the ones you love. Stream No Man's Land now, only on Hulu.
Live from NPR News, I'm Giles Snyder. A federal judge in Pennsylvania has thrown out the Trump campaign's challenge to President-elect Biden's victory in the state by more than 80,000 votes. Pennsylvania is set to certify its results tomorrow, but NPR's Amy Held reports that Trump's futile fight to overturn the election is not over.
Judge Matthew Brann, a registered Republican, didn't just dismiss the case. He compared it to Frankenstein's monster, haphazardly stitched together, amounting to an effort to disenfranchise Pennsylvania's voters without compelling legal argument or proof of rampant corruption. Those shortcomings have underpinned dozens of challenges lost for the Trump campaign. Now, more Republicans are accepting reality, including Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, who says Trump has exhausted all possible legal options and must move on. But the campaign says they'll appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. Meantime, Trump is seeking another recount in Georgia after the first one didn't work out for him. Georgia has already certified results showing Biden won. Amy Held, NPR News.
Georgia Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler is quarantining after receiving mixed results from coronavirus tests. A spokesman for her campaign.
All right, so while Sidney Powell's on Newsmax saying, hey, the evidence is overwhelming, the Trump administration, they continue to lose in court over and over and over. Their claims are being thrown out, and they're going to continue to appeal and to appeal. And I guess they believe that when they get to the Supreme Court, then boom, then they can drop all the evidence. And then the Supreme Court will be like, you're right. They weren't able to present enough evidence in the lower courts, and the lower courts are just like, what are you doing? This was published just about 30 minutes ago. All right. Trump's legal team cried vote fraud, but courts found none. All right. This was a news article that was released, again, just about 30 minutes ago. Trump's legal team cried vote fraud, but courts found none. As they frantically search for ways to salvage President Donald Trump's failed re-election bid, his campaign pursued a dizzying game of legal hopscotch across 6 states that centered on the biggest prize of all, Pennsylvania. The strategy may have played well in front of television cameras and on talk radio, but it has proved a disaster in court, where judges uniformly rejected their claims of vote fraud and found the campaign's legal work amateurish. All right, so I want you to hear this. See, they're all over the news making their claims, but when they get to court, the judges are like, "Go look, this is you're coming across as amateurs. What are you doing here?" In a ruling late Saturday, U.S. District Judge Matthew Braun, a Republican and Federalist Society member in central Pennsylvania, compared the campaign's legal arguments to Frankenstein's monster, concluding that Trump's team offered only speculative accusations, not proof of rampant corruption. Now, here's a judge, a Republican, saying, hey, you didn't offer anything. You offered speculative accusations, no evidence. But remember, she's on Newsmax claiming it's overwhelming. It can't be denied. All right. Now, as the legal doors close on Trump's attempts to have courts do what voters would not do on Election Day and deliver him a second term, his efforts in Pennsylvania show how far he's willing to push baseless theories of widespread voter fraud. So again, and this is what I told you to watch. Don't watch what they're claiming on television. Don't watch what they're claiming on radio. Don't watch and don't listen to what they're claiming on podcast. Watch what is happening in the courts. If they go to court and the judge is like, that's just accusations, where's your evidence? And they throw it out and they're basically saying you're coming across as amateurs. This is a joke. What are you doing? Go away. If that continues to happen, that proves how much evidence they actually have. It's easy to sit on a friendly television show where the interviewers are not really challenging you and not really being not being an adversarial mindset towards you. And you can make all the claims you want, and they're just like, wow, that's crazy. Wow, what you're claiming is insane, and never really challenge you. Yeah, you can sit there and do that. But when you get to court, the judges are going to say, put up or shut up. Show us what you've got. And every situation, what you hear the judges saying is, all you've got is accusations. Now, again, they keep telling us they have overwhelming evidence. Today is November the 22nd. When is it coming? They keep saying we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to hit you with all the evidence. And now they keep acting like, we don't need to present any evidence yet. We don't even need to do that yet. We can wait. So I guess they're going to wait until they get to the Supreme Court. And then when they get to the Supreme Court, then they're going to drop all the supposed overwhelming evidence that's going to overturn the election. But they didn't bother to present that evidence to any of the other judges. It's starting to look like what is the game here? Now, I can tell you I don't know what the game is. I don't know what the ultimate motivation is, but I can tell you what it's doing. It's just creating this is what we're witnessing, the creation of two narratives, dividing people, and people are choosing the narrative they want. That is what you as a Christian cannot participate in. You don't choose the narrative. You don't choose the reality you want. You find the truth and you go with the truth whether you like it or not. That's biblical Christianity. Biblical Christianity is not about, hey, you get to choose what you like. You get to choose what you like. You read the Bible and I don't like that part. You just forget that. We condemn that as Christians. Speak truth, find truth. There are two narratives. What is going to ultimately happen? I'm not going to make I won't make a prediction, but my from everything that I'm looking at that's happening up to this point, Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States, and it's over, and Trump is going to do as much damage as he can possibly do between now and the time he leaves office, and it's going to have who knows what's the long-term effects it's going to have on the United States and elections moving forward. I don't know. If you tell basically half of the country that the election was stolen from you and they believe it, even when you, as of this point, haven't presented any evidence that can even it's not doing anything in a court, and judges are pretty much laughing at what you're doing. But though that half of America believes it, then what do they do at the next election? Do they just give up voting? Do you just quit? Do you just not believe in the system anymore? There's major consequences moving forward, and I don't know what they're going to be. But while the world tries to figure out those consequences, we can't fall for all of this. So I just want you to realize I'll conclude this way, all right? And I just want, and we just have to continue to return to this because, again, remember the idea. This presents a challenge to us as Christians and as churches, right? That we respond to this in a biblical way. And this is and these are the things I need you to understand. Number one, realize that there are different narratives being put forth. You need to hear both. Don't allow yourself to fall into an ideological echo chamber where all you hear is your perspective. Like if all you do is listen to Newsmax, you think the election was completely stolen, and at any moment, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, but it's coming, the election's going to be overturned to Donald Trump. And that's what you're going to believe because that's all you're hearing. Right? You've got to listen to every narrative that's being presented and then try to go, okay, well, they're claiming this. Wow, they're claiming this. Those are radically different ideas. Okay, I got to wait and figure out the truth. And that's where you don't fall for that ideological blindness. Ideological echo chamber. You only listen to people who agree with you. You only listen to people who echo back what you already think and what you already believe. That will not help you. You've got to hear the different perspectives. They are available to you. Turn the channel. Subscribe to other podcasts. Listen to the different perspectives. You have to do that or you'll become ideologically blinded. All right. So make sure just stay out of the ideological echo chamber. Don't do that. Blow up the echo chamber and allow all kinds of competing ideas to bombard you so that you realize, wait a minute. This may not be as one-sided as I think that it is. All right. That's the first thing. Number two, ensure that you do not share information that you cannot 100% verify, that you cannot, don't share anything that you cannot prove is true, that you have not verified. right? Because you don't want to be sharing misinformation, right? Don't be very careful about sharing wild accusations and claims that have not been verified. Don't be a part of the problem. Don't create the noise. Try to end the noise by being very precise, specific, and careful about what you say and what you post, because you as a Christian, what you want to be known for is speaking truth, not wild, crazy theories. So avoid the ideological echo chamber. Be careful what you share. And number 3, just continue to be patient and allow the facts to come out. We got to have to exercise a little patience. I don't know how this is all going to go. If Sidney Powell, because I have heard her interviews now with her, I don't even know how many interviews I've heard from her. She keeps making these claims. People keep asking for evidence. She seems to get very frustrated when people start asking for evidence. She seems to get really irritated by that. She keeps claiming that it's out there. Supposedly they're going to update their website. I don't know. I don't know how hard it is to hire someone to update their website so that all this evidence is just out there so the American people can see it. But, at some point they're going to get to that. Because, they're busy. You could be, I don't know. She's not busy. It's just weird. Okay, we could just get into all the inconsistencies there, but okay. But at some point, the evidence is coming. All right. So maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe this all gets overturned. I'm having a hard time believe that, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait. If it happens, then it'll be one of the biggest stories in American history. That everyone was wrong. Everyone who said that there was no evidence, they were all wrong. All the judges, all the court cases that have been thrown out were wrong, and that they played the long game. And they played everyone. They did not present evidence. They get to the Supreme Court, and then in just like a dramatic courtroom drama that airs on television or a movie, all of a sudden they're going to be like, here's the evidence. And everybody's like, oh, wow. And then it's like they announce it from the Supreme Court. President Donald Trump won the election. This was the biggest attempt of voter fraud in human history. And it will be the biggest news in history. It will be. But at this point, unless it plays out, that's the game they're playing, they're just not presenting the evidence, and they're going to wait to the last moment. Unless they do that, then these are just a lot of claims and accusations. So we're just going to have to be patient and wait and see. All right. So avoid the ideological echo chamber. Please don't share information that you don't know is true. Just don't look. The world's going to throw out all their accusations. They're going to throw out all their theories. You don't do that. You're the Christian. You act differently. And 3, we'll just be patient and wait and see. But I just want to show you what's happening. It's like I'll listen to one thing because I listen to everything. I listen to Alex Jones. I'll watch Newsmax. I'll watch Fox News. I'll watch CNN, MSNBC, NPR, BBC, Al Jazeera, Russia Today. I don't care. I'll listen to everything. And it's just sometimes I'm like, whew, okay, man, it's like whiplash. My head gets thrown to the left, boom, gets thrown to the right, boom. And it's like, whoa, it's so radical. It's like living in completely different worlds. And the problem is now people just choose the world they like, and then that's the world they live in, and they think that's the way it is. And you're like, you do realize there's this whole other world over here. I know that you don't want to listen to them because that's the way people think. Oh, I don't like, like if you're on social media and you don't like what other people say, just block them, just remove them so that you only have people saying what you want to say, what you want to hear. You only see what you want to see. That's the way we operate in 2020. I'll just listen to the news that says what I like, and I won't listen to anybody else. And then I'll walk around thinking I know everything, and I'll walk around arrogantly thinking that I have all the information. No, you don't. You're just being told what you want to hear, and you're going to go along with it. We cannot operate that way. All right. I just wanted to throw this out there so that you continue to try to think biblically about this. I don't know. She's claiming that this is going to be biblical, and it's how epic it's going to be. We'll see. We'll see. I guess we're not going to have anything happen. It sounds like she's not going to file anything else until Friday. So That's going to just, I mean, at this point, they're going to, I don't know how long they can drag this out. I mean, it's November the 22nd, but they're still building the case, supposedly. They're still building the case because it's so complicated. On one hand, she says, this is difficult to put this all together. But the other hand, she's just like, the evidence is so overwhelming. Well, I don't know how difficult it is. Here's the evidence. Whoa, you're right. It's overwhelming. All right, stop. We can't certify any of these votes. We can't do anything. We got to stop this all. But so far, no judge has seen it because so far they haven't presented any evidence. The judges keep saying all you've got is accusation. They keep being thrown out of court every time they go. So I don't know. I don't know how long they drag this out. I'm getting all kinds of notifications. But yeah, that's where we are today. I just wanted to let you hear the different sides. And I'm going to continue to listen to both sides, and we will wait and see where the story goes. I'm not going to make any crazy predictions because I've got my gut feeling, but I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. And I'll just end with this. Remember, don't listen to what the Trump administration is saying on Twitter, in front of the camera, on a podcast, on radio. Look at what they're doing in court. Don't listen to what your friends are claiming. Don't look at what articles are saying. Look at what is happening in court. People will send me an article saying, look, this shows voter fraud. Okay, well, if it proves voter fraud, then why isn't the Trump administration using that overwhelming evidence that you just sent me in a news article from a Republican website? Why are they not using that in court? If they're not using it in court, that should tell you something. If they're not using it in court, there's something about that evidence that cannot be used in court. There's something about it that they know. And if the judges are just laughing you out of the courtroom, that may tell you that your cases may not be so strong and so overwhelming as you claim. Or you just go with the idea, well, even if we lose in court, we still, the evidence was overwhelming. But you know what? Every judge is a part of the conspiracy. Every person, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are involved in this grand conspiracy. But we just can't prove it. We just can't prove it, even though we claim we have overwhelming evidence to prove it. So if they ultimately lose in court, I think you know what to expect. There's going to be, some people are going to get some big money to publish books supposedly outlining all the evidence. So maybe someday we'll see the evidence. Maybe. I don't know. But in the meantime, we wait. All right. I'll stop right there. I'll be back on the air shortly. Everyone have a great day. God bless.